Distractions often appeared along the journey, drawing attention away from the goal. At the outset, attention was drawn to the first mountain on the horizon, a symbol of challenges ahead. Director Denis Villeneuve demonstrated a profound understanding of character-driven narratives, regardless of the story's scope. Drawing from the genius of Frank Herbert, this tale matched epic scale with deeply personal relationships, resulting in a dense and emotionally resonant experience. Such depth provided compelling motivation to participate in acting. One of the key aspects that made Dune exceptional was its remarkable ensemble. Both the characters within the story and the actors portraying them contributed to the film's extraordinary nature. The story revolved around the Atreides family, who fell victim to a trap devised by the increasingly jealous emperor. House Atreides stood as a beacon in the galaxy, respected and referenced by every other house, whether as friend or foe. The appeal of Leto Atreides lay in the tragic nature of his character. He strove not only to ensure the survival of his people, but also to shape his son into the leader he believed necessary. Paul Atreides, son of Duke Leto and Lady Jessica, embodied the future of House Atreides. As a young man facing extraordinary circumstances, he endeavored to navigate them with integrity, upholding his family's tradition. Both Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho served as close allies to Duke Leto, sharing a bond akin to that of brothers. Their camaraderie involved playful teasing, particularly from Jason, who acted as the family's head knight and protector, committing wholeheartedly to the Atreides cause. Gurney Halleck took on the role of combat trainer, characterized as both warrior and poet. His inherent distrust set him apart, making him vigilant and strict, yet also fulfilling paternal and even maternal functions for Paul, shaping him through guidance and discipline. Paul Atreides benefited from the knowledge and wisdom of many teachers, each contributing their expertise to his development. Thufir Hawat, a human computer, defied the trope of cold detachment and instead displayed deep affection for the Atreides family after years of loyal service. Dr. Yue, a trusted and longtime member of the household, embodied a complex and challenging role, marked by loyalty and heartbreak. Lady Jessica belonged to the Bene Gesserit order, which played a vital, though often shadowy role in politics and high-level council. These women wielded great strength as bodyguards, fighters, counselors, and spies, able to read and influence influential figures throughout the realm. Jessica's training under the Reverend Mother and her own ambitions resulted in a multifaceted character who had to balance being a mother, a partner, and a member of a secretive order. Every story required an antagonist, and for Dune, the Harkonnens filled that role. As ancestral enemies of the Atreides, the Harkonnen family had controlled the spice trade for generations, led by the formidable Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. His influence, marked by looming shadows and devastating consequences, extended over other characters, including his nephew Rabban and the twisted Mentat Peter de Vries. The Freemen, indigenous to the deep desert, had adapted to survive in the harshest conditions, oppressive heat, relentless sandstorms, and predatory dangers. Stilgar emerged as an influential leader among them, troubled by worries for the future as much as guided by strength. Dr. Kynes, initially appearing as merely an ecologist concerned with the Fremen, proved to be under significant pressure, managing responsibilities that required her to balance volatile situations. Paul Atreides often dreamt of a mysterious young woman who spoke to him in visions. This figure, native to Arrakis and shaped by the hostility between her people and invaders, carried herself as a fighter and initially viewed Paul skeptically. Despite initial defenses, a subtle, compelling connection emerged between them, representing both guidance and potential conflict for Paul. This enigmatic bond came to symbolize physical attraction mingled with foreboding purpose. Chant, as she appeared in Paul's dreams and later reality, came to represent a more profound humanity and connection to the world he would come to inhabit. Paul and those he cared for found themselves on an inevitable path toward conflict, one that would ultimately catalyze his growth into something greater amid the harsh desert conditions. This journey, they realized, was only beginning. At the very beginning of the movie, Paul is seen reluctantly training with Gurney Halleck. Gurney approaches the training with a playful yet serious demeanor, aiming to warn and awaken Paul, much like a mentor might with a younger person. The dynamic between Gurney and Paul is portrayed as a professor-teacher relationship, with a focus on demonstrating combat moves. The actors were placed in a scenario where they had to perform specific actions, and the initial scenes shot were the first 3 days of filming. During this time, Josh Brolin took the lead, drawing on his experience with combat sequences and acting as the weapons master. Roger Yuan, the choreographer, was responsible for most of the movement in Dune. Gurney's approach is playful, but also emphasizes the seriousness of the training. The choreographed sequence consists of basic blocks that are functional in real-world fighting, combining swift movements reminiscent of a chess player planning several moves. When Paul expresses that he is not in the mood, the training shifts into a real fight. The scene underscores that fighting is necessary regardless of one's mood, and the intensity increases as the characters engage in combat. The fighting style is a blend of martial arts and fencing, involving movements designed to distract the opponent and allow the blade to penetrate the shield. The technique is fast-paced, precise, and requires the use of both hands and knives. This specific style is unique to Dune and is based on Kali, particularly the Balintawak style, which features short movements suited to shorter blades. The choreography is tailored to the characters and actors, taking into account their physical abilities and backgrounds, even if they are not related to martial arts. The training process begins by building on the actors' existing skills and gradually guiding them into the world of fighting. Josh Brolin found the kata fighting with sticks to be challenging, but he learned by filming himself and analyzing his movements. He worked closely with Roger Yuan, pushing himself hard to master the choreography. Yuan expressed gratitude for the collaboration and noted Timothée Chalamet's background in taekwondo and dance, which helped him quickly memorize choreography. Yuan advised the actors to perform movements slowly at first, focusing on connecting their body, mind, and intent before increasing speed. Over time, the actors evolved and achieved a high level of mastery in the choreography. The training culminates in a moment where Paul gains the upper hand and Gurney acknowledges his progress, noting that Paul has found the necessary focus and determination for combat. Out on the vast open desert, the conversation turned to the danger of the deep dunes. The terrain was known as the Worms Domain, a place where no one wanted to be stranded. These fantastic beasts ruled the sands, their territory defined by the spice that gave this planet both its beauty and its peril. Spice, the most valued resource in the universe, was to Dune what oil once was to Earth. Out in the deep desert, massive harvester machines mined the spice. The sandworms would strike these harvesters, drawn to the rhythmic motion and vibrations that they produced. They attacked with ferocity, not out of hunger, but to defend the spice fields that were part of their nature. George Hull described the harvester as a rolling factory, born from the question of realism, how such a machine might truly function on a world made entirely of sand. Every element of its design was conceived to address a practical challenge: how to extract, filter, and separate the spice from sand grains under harsh planetary conditions, while also making the process visually compelling. He wanted it to look functional, not like a sci-fi oil rig with treads added for effect. When he began work on the harvester, Denis Villeneuve asked him to imagine how it moved and worked. Did it crawl on legs like a spider, or move on heavy tracks? Each option implied a different level of technology and realism, and part of the task was to find a design that was futuristic, yet still believable. Making machines both functional and cinematic was one of the most challenging, yet rewarding aspects of Hull's work. Josh Brolin recalled how the crew anticipated unbearable heat during filming scorching days in rubber suits under the desert sun. But when shooting began, the conditions were surprisingly mild, almost pleasant, which created a sense of camaraderie and humor among the cast. For Denis Villeneuve, that scene was more than spectacle. It represented Paul's first actual encounter with the deep desert, the moment he connected with the world that would define his destiny. Standing before the endless dunes, Paul felt a strange sense of belonging, as though the harsh, silent wilderness had always been his true home. There came a moment when Paul kneeled before the spice harvester, and Villeneuve kept refining the staging to ensure the act carried weight and intention. His careful direction revealed not only technical precision, but also a deep concern for the well-being and performance of his cast, always working to draw the most authentic emotions from them. Every element of the harvester rescue sequence had to be timed with precision. Holding a shot too long could mean risks and costs rising dramatically, so each moment was mapped meticulously, in collaboration with storyboard artist Sam Hudecki. Together, they shaped the sequence to achieve a balance of visual rhythm, clarity, and cinematic power. Filming Paul and Gurney on the ramp of the ornithopter required real-world mechanics. A crane lifted the aircraft, allowing the actors to react as though they were witnessing the monstrous worm devour the spice crawler below. What ended up on screen was a blend of practical effects, staging, and timing grounded in physical realism. Villeneuve later reflected that this sequence, though technically demanding, was among his favorites. It relied not on dialogue or exposition, but on pure visual storytelling, the language of cinema itself. The images conveyed emotion and scale, transforming effort and choreography into a seamless moment of awe and tension that captured the essence of Dune. Duncan Idaho is recognized as one of the greatest sword masters in the galaxy. Known for his exceptional skill, he is the person others would want by their side in the most perilous situations. Denis Villeneuve considers Jason Momoa a force on set, noting that Momoa's approach to fight sequences resembles the precision and fluidity of a dancer. Momoa's enthusiasm for stunt choreography is evident, and it quickly becomes apparent that participating in these action routines is one of his favorite aspects of the role. At one critical moment, Duncan attempts to save the Duke, Lady Jessica, and Paul, but arrives too late. This marks the audience's first real glimpse of Duncan's fighting prowess, which echoes the discipline and grace of a samurai. Roger Yuen choreographed the sequence. Jason's background in fight training becomes evident during production. Following specific instructions, he is seen perfecting pinning maneuvers and refining combat techniques under Yuan's guidance. His collaboration with Chad Stahelski also contributes to the realism of these sequences. Jason Momoa fully embodies Duncan Idaho, delivering a performance that is physically intense and authentic. The epic hallway fight involves 19 stunt performers simultaneously, an impressive feat even for an experienced actor like Momoa. Training for these extensive battle scenes demanded meticulous attention and adaptation. Jason focused on blocking and deflecting attacks with power, while Roger Yuan continued to fine-tune his technique, ensuring each move matched Jason's strengths and preferences. Momoa freely admits there are stunts in the film that only professional stunt performers could perform. He emphasizes the dedication of these individuals who risk their lives for the sake of artistry and the excitement of the audience. Director Denis Villeneuve insisted on using sword-based weapons to evoke romantic heroism reminiscent of classic storytelling. This creative decision adds an extra layer of depth to the film's combat sequences. Duncan Idaho's character is described as passionate and fearless. Paul Atreides deeply admires Duncan, aspiring to emulate both his courage and his presence. Jason Momoa's infectious energy affects everyone on set, contributing to a vibrant atmosphere during filming. Timothée Chalamet comments on the international experience of the cast and crew, explaining how their professionalism helps maintain a high level of energy throughout the production. Momoa reflects fondly on Duncan's death scene, appreciating the sense of honor that comes with portraying a knight who defends his family. He finds the experience especially meaningful, as it allows both director and cast to explore new dimensions of action filmmaking. Momoa regards the entire journey through Denis Villeneuve's perspective as transformative and beautiful, providing him with a unique and memorable experience that far surpasses his previous roles. The film's production begins under the careful supervision of Denis Villeneuve, whose direction sets an immediate tone of precision and unity. The crew operates efficiently, capturing the unfolding moments of a vast creative process. Villeneuve reflects on the long and detailed journey of creation, emphasizing how every visual and conceptual element was meticulously designed to preserve the spirit of Frank Herbert's original work. This dedication to authenticity defines the film's entire production. Villeneuve expresses the rare privilege of being surrounded by such a tangible realization of vision. Rather than relying solely on imagination, he and his team have the luxury of physically inhabiting worlds that once existed only on the page. The environment itself becomes a partner in storytelling, shaping not just the imagery, but also the emotions behind it. Timothée Chalamet notes that the film's expansive sets create an atmosphere that profoundly affects the performance. The vastness evokes an effortless creativity, unlike the constricted feeling of working inside a typical studio or soundstage. The actors feed off the realism of their surroundings, merging their characters with the physical scale of the universe they inhabit. Production designer Patrice Vermette describes how his imagination ignites instantly upon reading the script. He translates the words into strong visual concepts, assembling mood boards and sketches to communicate with Villeneuve. Together, they pursue a vision that stands apart from all previous interpretations of Dune, a film that visually redefines the world of Arrakis. Villeneuve insists on building as much of the physical environment as possible. He believes that tangible structures influence every aspect of filmmaking, from the actors' performances to the director's perception on set. Real light interacting with real surfaces sparks creative decisions that could never occur in digital space. Ideas are born spontaneously, driven by how illumination transforms a scene in real time. Vermette envisions the planet Caladan as a land both comforting and timeless, a place reminiscent of medieval castles integrated with nature. Its atmosphere feels warm and textured, evoking the sounds of fires and ocean winds. In contrast, Arrakis embodies pure survival. Its architecture is functional, constructed to withstand brutal sandstorms and intense heat. Paul Atreides' arrival on Arrakeen symbolizes a dramatic transition between two worlds, one soothing, the other harshly monumental. Scale dominates every structural choice on Arrakis. Vast murals honor the sandworm as both deity and cultural symbol, reflecting the planet's spiritual depth and the fragility of life within such a hostile environment. The design philosophy transforms space into a psychological tool oppressive, awe-inspiring, and deeply reflective of its inhabitants' endurance. Within this setting, Paul's bedroom is still being assembled. The confined dimensions intentionally create a feeling of pressure and vulnerability, suggesting a future heir burdened by destiny. Vermette's designs adapt continuously, transforming single rooms into multiple narrative locations through modular reconfiguration. Duncan and Leto's quarters, for instance, share structures yet differ in mood through subtle changes in lighting and decor. Because the planet's winds can rage at nearly 900 kilometers per hour, the residences must resemble fortified bunkers. Walls are thick, windows minimal, and interiors are designed to preserve coolness, mimicking the natural insulation of caves. Every material decision ties logically to environmental survival. The artistry extends to the most minor details. Carpets woven in Denmark and hand-woven in Budapest bring cultural resonance to each space. Every room appears unearthed rather than constructed, blending futuristic minimalism with ancient craftsmanship. The result is an aesthetic that feels both advanced and archaic-like artifacts of a civilization that has survived for millennia. Across departments, the precision and artistry elevate the entire production. The crew's collective craftsmanship evokes the grand epics of earlier cinema, when scale, light, and texture formed the foundation of storytelling, rather than relying on digital effects. The sequence transitions into Kynes' laboratory, an intricate blend of science and mysticism. Designed as a research center exploring how life can thrive in desert conditions, it features unusual instruments inspired by both real-world science and abstract imagination. Every object feels functional, yet alien, resisting conventional laboratory aesthetics. The layout resembles wartime bunkers, featuring a central corridor surrounded by circular chambers that symbolize both security and isolation. The walls bear faintly embedded ancient writing, nearly camouflaged within the stone's texture. These inscriptions hint at the wisdom of a culture suppressed by empire, silently preserving its identity through layers of architecture. Vermette and his team undertake enormous efforts to bring these visions to life, crafting physical environments that have never been seen in cinema before. Their collaboration with Villeneuve is based on shared trust and a mutual passion for storytelling through imagery. Together, they celebrate design not as decoration, but as the soul of the film's world, where every room, object, and beam of light tells a fragment of Frank Herbert's mythic universe. The making of Dune had taken years, driven by one central challenge, capturing the essence of Frank Herbert's original vision while translating it faithfully to film. Denis Villeneuve sought to honor the spirit of the book and to create cinema that felt as though it emerged organically from Herbert's imagined worlds. Villeneuve's design philosophy centered on nature itself. He wanted the landscapes, wind, light, and dust to feel authentic, as if the world of Dune truly existed. Every visual element, from the vast dunes to the subtle shifts of atmosphere, needed to appear born of real environmental conditions rather than artistic fabrication. Frank Herbert's novel was a masterpiece of world building. Its intricate societies, planets, and ecosystems offered a foundation for epic storytelling. In designing the film, the creative team sought a balance between the director's vision, Herbert's words, and their own design instincts, triangulating inspiration to produce something that honored all three. The designers drew inspiration from Herbert's descriptions of Arrakis, including its fierce 200-mile-per-hour winds and harsh desert conditions. Every architectural and mechanical form was constructed to withstand this brutal environment. Conceptually, designing for such extremity felt like solving a puzzle how to make something visually new, yet entirely logical within the physics of that world. By using simple geometric forms with subtle detailing, the team conveyed immense scale while maintaining functional realism. When Paul Atreides arrives on Arrakeen, he encounters not only a new planet, but also the most coveted and dangerous one in the galaxy. From a visual standpoint, Villeneuve wanted Arrakis to appear severe, sparse, and unforgiving. The palette leaned toward browns, ochres, and the endless tones of stone and sand, a world nearly stripped of color, reflecting its desolation. Villeneuve's earlier years of filming in Jordan had left a deep impression. A decade before Dune, he had admired the surreal landscapes of Wadi Rum and resolved that, should he ever adapt Dune, that would be the place. The formations were unlike anything found elsewhere on earth-immense rocks sculpted by time into alien art. The production team marveled at the terrain. Even seasoned climbers had never seen stone like it. Cinematographer Greg Fraser described the light in that region as almost sacred, its atmosphere colored by the reddish soil, bright sky, and crystalline air. The environment exuded spirituality. On Arrakis, this translated into scorching light and arid heat, an intensity impossible to replicate within a studio. Arrakeen's cinematic design was modeled directly after the natural formations found in Wadi Rum. The area was first surveyed by helicopter, revealing an amphitheater of mountains that naturally enclosed the imagined city. Using 3D Previs, the team built rough geometry to plan aerial shots and flight sequences, ensuring the digital vision aligned with the real terrain. The city itself was imagined as a monument vast yet inhabited, monumental yet alive. Bryce Parker and the design team developed Arrakeen as a living character, populated with citizens going about their daily routines. Villeneuve oversaw virtual camera layouts himself, navigating a low-resolution city model on an iPad as though flying a helicopter, designing the exact shots he envisioned. While exterior sequences were shot in Wadi Rum, the principal city elements were filmed in Budapest on sound stages that spanned the area of 2 football fields. The filmmakers constructed an immense landing platform for the Atreides' arrival, extending it digitally with sand screens. Unlike conventional blue screens, the sand screens appeared as natural desert tones when inverted in post-production, blending perfectly with the filmed environment. For Villeneuve, Dune was always a film about nature, its beauty, its severity, and humanity's relationship to it. Shooting amid real deserts allowed the production to connect with that essence, rather than fabricate it artificially. The natural world generously contributed to the film, and what the crew captured on camera became one of their proudest achievements. Certain aspects of the film were deliberately grounded closer to human reality. This choice allowed the audience to connect more deeply with the emotional stakes of the story and the characters' struggles. Among the design elements that embodied this balance between realism and imagination was the ornithopter, a creation intended to feel both futuristic and familiar. In Frank Herbert's novel, the ornithopter was described as a machine with bird-like wings, propelled through rhythmic mechanical motion. Translating that concept onto the screen posed a challenge. The craft could easily appear magnificent or absurd, depending on its execution. The filmmakers approached it with a sense of wonder, treating the idea of insectoid flying machines with childlike curiosity and precision. Production on the ornithopter began in early 2018. Denis Villeneuve collaborated with production designer Patrice Vermette and concept artist George Hull to bring the vehicle into reality. Their early sketches drew from insects, birds, and helicopters before evolving into sharper, more angular designs that reflected Dune's universe. Over time, these references formed a cohesive identity in aircraft that seemed plausible within the harsh deserts of Arrakis. Hull faced the unique challenge of visually interpreting Herbert's flapping wing concept. Because the fictional society had abandoned advanced computing, the machines needed to appear mechanically driven rather than digitally controlled. His process began with technical sketches that explored how the wings might move, followed by 3D modeling and iterative feedback from Villeneuve, who sought to balance realism and otherworldliness. The final design blended the form of a dragonfly with the solidity of a helicopter, achieving a believable sense of power and control. The wings were designed to move in rapid, near-invisible vibrations, more like a hummingbird's flutter than a traditional flap. Hull worked alongside Vermette and artist Collie Wirtz to transform concept drawings into a full-scale craft, complete with detailed interior construction. Every screw and switch had to function convincingly, giving actors a tangible environment that felt authentically mechanical. Villeneuve insisted that the ornithopter obey the laws of physics. He wanted its movements and structure to project strength rather than elegance, resembling a muscular military helicopter capable of withstanding the planet's brutal conditions. Vermette designed the machines as massive, durable beasts with wingspans reaching over 100 feet and bodies weighing several tons. These full-size builds demanded complex rigging to simulate flight on set while maintaining realism. The cockpit was arranged in multiple tiers to enhance visibility in IMAX format, allowing sweeping views of the desert through angled panes of glass. This design immersed both actors and viewers in the planetary landscape. The detailed craftsmanship made the machines feel truly functional, something one could imagine piloting through sandstorms. For the film's visual effects, Paul Lambert's CG team extended the physical sets by animating wings, articulating their motion, and refining flight physics. They studied helicopter movements to guide the animation of takeoffs, dives, and turns. The goal was to maintain credibility. Shots were composed as though filmed by real camera helicopters capturing live aircraft in action. This approach grounded even the most dramatic scenes in a sense of authenticity. Villeneuve often emphasized that Dune was filled with strange and complex ideas, but he wanted the audience to find familiarity amidst the alien beauty. The ornithopter became that touchstone, a marvel of design that looked plausible enough to exist. Its final form, both majestic and utilitarian, embodied the director's vision of technology shaped by humanity's survival on a hostile world. As Denis Villeneuve embarked on the monumental task of adapting Dune, one challenge rose above all others: the sandworms. These colossal creatures stood as the story's most iconic symbol, embodying both terror and divinity. Mary Parent reflected that the sandworms were not merely beasts. They were the source of spice, sustaining life on Arrakis and representing sacred forces to the Freemen. To them, each worm was an embodiment of creation, life's cycle, and the vast power of nature itself. The filmmakers envisioned the sandworms as massive beings, stretching over 500 meters, dominating the desert as territorial guardians of the spice fields. Through generations of art and literature, their image had become legendary, a cornerstone of the Dune mythos. Known to the Freemen as Shai-Hulud, the sandworm was the planet's most significant and most dangerous organism. Villeneuve and his team sought to ground it in believable biology, focusing on how it adapted to Arrakis's unforgiving environment, how it hunted, and how it moved through endless dunes. Creating these immense creatures demanded more than digital wizardry. It required them to feel tangible, as if the passage of eons of sand and time had carved them. The goal was to move beyond synthetic computer imagery, instead crafting an organic presence that felt ancient and real. The final vision emerged as something primordial, a survivor from a bygone era, rough-skinned, scarred by centuries of erosion, enduring the relentless sands. The team imagined the worms filtering sand for microscopic nourishment, much like whales sieve the ocean for krill. Every element of their biology, from feeding habits to surface texture, was conceived to strengthen their realism. The ritual reverence of the Fremen towards these creatures deepened the creative commitment. Every movement and breath had to feel sacred, bound to the planet's natural rhythm. Animating such beings required a meticulous study of motion. Drawing inspiration from desert-dwelling animals, the designers studied camouflage, locomotion, and environmental interaction to reproduce naturalistic movement. Visual effects teams spent months simulating the play of sand around vast subterranean bodies, how dunes shifted, collapsed, or swelled as the worms passed. Balancing artistry with physical accuracy became an obsession, ensuring each motion maintained both grandeur and authenticity. The sound team faced its own creative test. When the worm finally appeared in full, it needed to evoke awe rather than fear. Initially conceived as a monstrous roar, the sound instead evolved into something contemplative, a meeting between humanity and divinity. The earliest noises were not vocalizations but physical expressions: the rasp of the worm's sinewy interior, the moist constriction of its throat, the grinding of sand across its chitin. Gradually, this gave way to a pure, resonant tone, the voice of the worm. Yet it was understated, almost communicative in its simplicity, as though the creature spoke in elemental rhythms rather than language. The designers noticed an eerie connection between these guttural tones and the rhythmic thumping used by the Fremen to summon the behemoths. That resonance, they speculated, was no coincidence. It suggested that the thumper's rhythm echoed the worm's own natural call. The sound designers, Mark Mangini and Theo Green, saw this merging of human and creature sound as an illustration of ecological unity. On Arrakis, everything was bound to its environment, every vibration, an extension of the planet's voice. The rhythmic pulse of the desert fused with the heartbeat of the worm, blurring the boundary between living being and landscape. Ultimately, the creative team believed they had captured the essence of Frank Herbert's vision, a creature that is both terrifying and divine. The sandworm stood not just as a monster of myth, but as a living god, massive, ancient, and awe-inspiring, embodying the eternal balance between fear and reverence that defined the universe of Dune. Across a vast, arid desert landscape, Arrakis, also known as Duna, singular sense of possession pervades the opening scene, intertwining the fates of both land and those who covet control over it. Stellan Skarsgård interprets the role of the Baron, notable as a character with limited screen time, but immense narrative weight. The creative team believed that, by imbuing this small role with compelling physicality, the Baron could dominate the atmosphere of the entire film as a menacing shadow, a quality essential for any antagonist. This approach demanded an actor with gravitas and range, capable of conveying not only the Baron's intelligence but also his deep-seated cruelty. Although Skarsgård is known off-screen for his kindness, the transformation instilled a genuine sense of intimidation among both cast and crew. Observations from collaborators highlight Skarsgård's professionalism and work ethic, particularly as he endured the demanding makeup process essential for the Baron's transformation. Despite hours spent in prosthetics, his performance remained fierce and nuanced, a testament to his dedication. David Dastmalchian describes the imposing effect of Skarsgård's makeup, which so thoroughly transformed him that even fellow cast members were awestruck on first encounter. The practicality of the prosthetics elevated the believability of the Baron's character, solidifying the villain's presence as both real and deeply unsettling. Bringing this character to life required more than just performance. It demanded exhaustive preparation. Months of research and design went into defining the Baron's form, as the team strove for a unique look, steering clear of caricature instead to evoke true strength, power, and menace. The decision to forgo CGI in favor of prosthetics ensured a direct connection between the actor and the character. Skarsgård collaborated closely with makeup artists Love and Eva from Sweden, whose reputation for excellence made them the preferred choice. Extensive early testing, including a full-body life cast, resulted in a comprehensive sculpt of the Baron's entire appearance. Applying the complete makeup for the Baron proved a marathon ordeal, often requiring 7 hours to complete. This process involved a cooling suit, a large neck appliance, and a bespoke headpiece. The transformation included delicate integrations among the face, shoulders, and artificial skin parts, each detail meticulously hand-painted for seamless realism. While stunt performers seldom wore the suit for more than an hour, Skarsgård frequently endured double that time, highlighting both his resilience and the taxing nature of the role. Throughout this intensive process, Skarsgård maintained unfailing patience and a genial demeanor. Despite the physical discomfort, he tackled the challenge cheerfully, showing appreciation for the artistry involved and even relishing the opportunity to embody the role of the Baron. The culmination of these efforts was captivating. Watching the Baron emerge, fully realized through makeup and performance, invoked a genuine sense of fear and awe. The narrative stakes reached their peak as the Baron declared the end of the Atreides bloodline, his threat made all the more chilling by the actor's convincing portrayal. Ultimately, the entire endeavor underscored the symbiosis of actor and makeup. No matter how impressive the prosthetics, it was Skarsgård who brought true life to the Baron, transforming the elaborate design into a living, breathing menace. The performance was so immersive that it seemed the actor himself was overtaken by the darkness and power of the character. In reflection, the journey to becoming the Baron proved to be a unique artistic experience. Through dynamic collaboration and spontaneous moments with other artists, Skarsgård found himself drawn to the role as if, like music, the process itself became a reason to perform. When Denis Villeneuve embarked on creating Dune, his vision centered on building an entirely new auditory world whose sounds had never been heard before. The film's uniqueness lay not only in its visual ambition, but in the boldness and creative fearlessness that defined its conception. Sound designer Ron Bartlett described how much of the process echoed the perspective of an audience member, asking what one would honestly want to hear in a theater. Villeneuve, being a forward-thinking director, believed deeply in sound as an inseparable part of the filmmaking process, rather than an afterthought. In Villeneuve's view, rhythm governed the universe of Dune. It represented life, and paradoxically, death. To honor this central theme, sound was not postponed to post-production. Instead, Villeneuve collaborated closely with his editor, Joe Walker, and the sound department during filming to let the film's sonic identity evolve alongside the picture itself. As they captured the roar of sandworms and the mechanical clatter of ornithopters, songs of the desert and rumbles of flight took shape early. The team aimed to bake this sound world directly into the edit, ensuring each sequence carried the film's oral DNA from the very start. For the team, sound went beyond technical function. It shaped emotional tone and character development. They sought not mere realism, but mood and immersion, where each scene's sonic fabric reflected the inner rhythm of the story. Among their most significant challenges was designing the voice, a supernatural command force used in the story. It needed to sound organic and believable, not synthetic or effect-driven. The design evolved around the concept of ancestral resonance, ancestral voices, echoing through the one using it, merging mysticism and authenticity. Finding that perfect balance took months. The sound team did not feel entirely confident until the final days of mixing after conducting numerous experiments that layered human, spectral, and environmental elements into something hauntingly alive. For Dune, sound designer Theo Green considered sand itself to be a living instrument. Rather than recording artificial Foley, he placed microphones beneath shifting sands and discovered the dune's unique resonance. Entire sound days were devoted to recording desert vibrations, the earth's deep groans that could be heard from great distances. These natural tones, reminiscent of whale calls, made the landscape feel almost sentient. The desert became its own character, speaking through its movements and hums. Integrating these sounds into the film added a tangible realism to the imaginary world. Throughout production, every creative decision was guided by one question: what did the film truly need? Sometimes that meant resisting the temptation to make sounds overly theatrical or loud. Instead, the team aimed to make every sound feel as though it were captured from reality, as though a documentary crew had recorded it. This pursuit of realism, however, required invention. Ornithopters and giant worms did not exist to be recorded, so they had to be designed. This nuanced design brought texture and authenticity, creating a believable lived-in universe through imagined acoustics. At the same time, sound and music blended seamlessly. The boundaries between design and score dissolved, forming a continuous emotional current running through the film. Villeneuve then turned to composer Hans Zimmer, asking if he knew Frank Herbert's Dune. Zimmer, a lifelong admirer of the novel, considered it one of his favorite books and had long dreamed of adapting it. Zimmer and Villeneuve shared a deep understanding of the source material. Their collaboration was not merely professional, it was a shared act of translation, interpreting the world of Arrakis through sound and emotion rather than genre convention. Zimmer's process began with experimentation. He built new instruments, discarded familiar timbres, and sought an entirely new musical language. The usual orchestral sounds of science fiction trumpets, strings, brass were set aside. Instead, Zimmer questioned what instruments might exist on another planet, in another culture. Through collaboration with skilled performers, he explored unconventional ways to play instruments. This approach produced something ancient yet futuristic, grounded yet alien. The resulting score drew inspiration from natural phenomena, such as wind over sand and rhythmic echoes that resemble steps or heartbeats. Rhythm again was central, dangerous, hypnotic, and alive. Zimmer incorporated polyrhythms so complex they defied human performance. These recurring patterns, while seemingly chaotic, were carefully structured, echoing the film's themes of destiny and control. Each vocal phrase and each syllable were recorded and treated independently to create a layered sonic mosaic. Editor Joe Walker admired how Zimmer's method mirrored classical Germanic composition principles, developing small motifs that could evolve organically into vast structures, much like the interlocking gears of a cosmic machine. Zimmer viewed the story's intricate world's royal houses, empires, destiny as parts of one great mechanism. Every musical theme had to function both independently and as part of a grand, interconnected whole. His motifs intertwined like clockwork, reflecting both sound design and narrative architecture. The result was a thematic world where each piece of music could adapt to context, romantic, tense, or heroic while maintaining a single musical DNA. Watching Zimmer's process unfold felt like witnessing magic. What emerged was a score unlike any other. It embraced emotional strangeness and cultural blending, a musical language that felt ancient and alien at once. This sound, inseparable from the film's story, gave the universe of Dune its soul. To achieve that power, Zimmer worked closely with a small group of extraordinary vocalists, including Lisa Gerrard and Lore Cotter. They developed invented vocal languages and pushed the human voice to its limits, melding chant, rhythm, and raw sound into primal energy. Villeneuve surrounded himself with collaborators who matched his fearlessness. He believed the right path was often marked by discomfort, by ideas that initially seemed impossible or absurd. From that creative courage came discovery. The final score stood among Zimmer's most distinctive works, emotive, unpredictable, and deeply human. It captured both the vastness of an alien world and the intimacy of personal struggle. Zimmer intended for audiences to journey inward as much as outward, to feel the immensity of the desert yet sense every grain of emotion within it. Just as dunes are formed from countless grains of sand, the music was built from numerous grains of sound, each one a fragment of feeling rather than an epic wall of noise. In the end, the sound of Dune became not a spectacle, but an emotional landscape, a world of motion, depth, and rhythm that mirrored life itself.